Happy Wednesday. Can you believe we are halfway through December, just about, well, a third, maybe not quite a half, but we're getting there. All right, just waiting for everybody to get out of the waiting room. By the way, just remember, some of you are logged in as someone else. I'm looking at Melinda Love's team. I would love to get to know what your name is. So I know you're not Melinda because I know who Melinda is. So what you can do is hover over your name. If you click on participants down there at the bottom, if you're somebody who's logged in as somebody else because of a team or whatnot, you can log in or not log in. You can go down to participants, hover over the name you're logged in as, and then change it to whatever your name is. Something I love to do in these classes is get to recognize your face with your name. And then if I see you at an event, I'll know who you are. So please do that if you're able. And then if you're able to turn your cameras on, that would be awesome for today. And today we're going to jump in and get started here pretty quick. So let's get to it. Just a reminder, we meet today, of course, then Tuesday is our extra help call. Wednesday is our last live session of 2024. There will be some on-demand content released that I recorded today. And then there's also a great opportunity I'll tell you about right here. So we've got over, I think it's the next week. I want to say it starts the 16th, all the way through the 20th. There is a plethora. I think there's 17 different coaching calls that you can join. They're free. They're only for people in the MAPS community, which is what you guys are. And let me put this link in the chat box for you real quick. And what this is you can sign up for training. So we are not having live trainings during that time because we're on a holiday break. However, it can still be a great time to log on and get some training. So there's all different topics: real estate development, investing. I know Heidi actually quite well. She is a pro at investing. As it's not really teaching you how to work with investors, it's teaching you how to be an investor yourself. Really, really inspirational topic. And Heidi is a master at that. Database, so how to talk to your sphere. Sorry, I have the hiccups. Listings, so how to get more listings. Both Erin and Emily are fantastic. That would be a great call. Then down here, we've got how to get into luxury. I mean, there's just a whole list. I'm not going to go through every single one, but check out the list of holiday call options and choose one. The one I'm teaching, lead conversion, isn't necessarily the right title. It's about how to build your value proposition so that they'll go ahead and hire you when you offer that agency agreement. So that's what we'll be talking about on that call. And then you can see, I mean, there's just a whole list. Fitness, I mean, there's just all kinds, health, systems, lots of great stuff. So check that out. Holiday calls coming up starting next week through the 20th. One thing I will say, every coach is a little different. I will be recording the call that I teach, and then we'll send it to anyone who registered. I don't know if everyone's doing that, but if you see a topic that you want to join and you're not able to join live for any reason, just go ahead and register. And you may not get a recording. It depends on if that coach records the call. But you definitely won't get a recording if you don't register, and you will if you register, and they do, you'll get that. So just a quick word to the wise. All right, I'll put that back up at the end so you can come back to it. For now, bring your attention back here. And today we're going to talk about why tracking matters. We're also going to do a deep dive into metrics and different strategies to improve your calls and your conversions. And then I'll give you some systems for use. Now, I did last month upload a short, it was like a 20-minute recording on tracking, which you'll see some repeat if you watched that. But today is a much deeper dive into how to influence the conversions, what you can do to improve your skill, and so forth. So let's go ahead and jump in. First, we've got our disclaimer. Again, this is at the beginning of your workbook, so check that out. And let's jump into why tracking matters. So I will be honest with you. When I first learned about tracking, I was completely disinterested. Can anybody here relate, perhaps? Truth be told, I only tracked because my leader made me. Doesn't that sound very mature? So yeah, I tracked because my leader said on the team, we track and you get to go to lunch once you turn in your numbers to our ops person. That was pretty much it. And I wanted to go to lunch, so I turned my numbers in. That was the extent of why I did it. I didn't know how to interpret the numbers. I didn't know what percentages I should even be aiming for. I literally just tracked my numbers, which that was a chore to get me to do. And then I turned them in and went on about my day. I never really understood the purpose. So I just want to encourage you, if that's where you are, you're in good company. And I actually now love tracking. And my hope is I can make it interesting for you and give you some inspiration for why it really matters. So let's talk about why it matters. So on the screen, you'll see a picture. I took this picture, gosh, several years ago. Interestingly enough, this is of Lake Lure. Some of you have heard of Lake Lure in the news because it got a lot of damage in Hurricane Helene. But this is a place where I like to go kayaking. It's like an hour from my house. Anybody want to be there? Doesn't it look gorgeous? So let's say that I told you as a class, let's have a field trip. And in the summer, let's give it till about May, let it warm up a bit. Let's meet in that spot, and I'm going to take you all on a sunset tour of the lake. Anybody interested? I think it sounds kind of fun. And I might say, okay, let's do it. We're going to meet May. Let's actually do it Memorial Day. Let's just pick a day. Let's pick a time. And we're going to meet here. See you there. Well, you don't quite have enough information, right? Now, could you visualize what it might look like and feel like to be there on the lake? I mean, you have a picture, so that probably helps you. Can you imagine what it might smell like? What it might sound like? Right? Probably hear some birds, hear some waves, might hear some ducks, right? I mean, you can visualize it, you can picture it. You have an actual visual in front of you of what it looks like. But if I don't give you any further instruction, other than simply saying it's in Lake Lure, the likelihood that you will end up in this exact spot with me on a boat is incredibly unlikely. You might even say, well, I know that's in North Carolina and I live in Idaho, so I'll just point my car that direction. Okay, well, good luck, right? You might even end up in the right town, but what's the likelihood you're going to end up in that exact spot, right? And that's proving the point of when we are not tracking in our business, that's kind of what we're doing. How many of you have done goal setting for 2025? You've thought through how much money you want to make. Maybe you can visualize it. Maybe you're picturing what it feels like to pay off the debt or pay off the house or to go on the trip. You have all that visualized in your head. Now, my follow-up question for you, and there's no judgment on your answer, and you don't have to actually answer me, but in your head, I want you to think about how clear are you on a scale of 0 to 10 exactly what it takes to hit and achieve the goal that you have visualized for yourself next year? And a 0 would be, I have no idea. A 10 would be, I need to talk to 6 people an hour, 6 hours a day, 46 weeks a year. Something like that. That would be the clarity. So I'm curious what your number is. If you want to tell me, you could put it in the chat box. I am kind of curious as a group, how are we doing with tracking? But again, 0 would be, I don't know anything about tracking. I could not tell you what I need to do to hit my goal, but I'll work hard and hopefully I'll hit it. 10 would be, I'm incredibly crystal clear, even with time off, exactly how many people I need to talk to daily, even with my time out of the office next year. Good. And it looks like there's some decent numbers coming in, but I see not a lot of responses, which makes me wonder if a lot of us are not crystal clear. And that's okay. There's no judgment. That was me as well. And today we're going to help you get clear and learn what that looks like. So the thing is, tracking, it's kind of like our GPS to achieve the personal and business goals that we have set for ourselves. So if I know exactly how much money I want to make next year and what the goal is, I need a path to actually get me there. So let's jump into what does that look like? So the big idea of tracking is it's going to help you figure out how many contacts does it take to earn a closing. That's like the big picture idea. That would be the minimum that we want to understand from tracking. So don't worry, I'll put the slide back up. But that would be, okay, if I want 20 closings next year, and I know that it takes me 100 contacts to earn a closing, multiply that out. That's 2,000 contacts in a year. Got it. And then you divide that into the weeks that you're actually working. One thing I want to say real quick, and we do actually do a very deep dive into financial goal setting later in the program. It's towards the end of the program. But where I see a lot of people fail with their financial goals, 2 things, and this isn't even the training today, so just jot this down somewhere. It's bonus. I want to help you achieve. I would hate for you to work hard and then get to the end of next year and think, oh, I still didn't hit it. What happened? Often people forget to calculate the taxes on top of their income. So they get clear on, okay, I want to make $200,000 next year, but they forget taxes. And you want to make sure you add in taxes. The other thing people forget is they might get clear on how many closings they want. And those of you that typed in that you're like a level 7, a level 10, you might even know how many contacts you need next year. What a lot of people forget though is they divide it by 52 weeks. And do you want to work 52 weeks? Anybody here? I don't even think I want to work 46 weeks, if I'm honest. I love long times off. I've taken 3-week vacations before where I even changed my email password. I can't even get into it if I tried. I like that life. So no, I don't want to work 52 weeks next year. How many weeks do you want to work? And a lot of people don't remember to cut, say you need 5,200 contacts. They just divide it by 52. And really, how much vacation do you want? How much sick time do you want? How many conferences are you going to go to that will take you off of lead generation, right? You want to make sure you calculate that in. So that's a little bit of bonus for you. But the big idea of tracking is just how many contacts does it take to earn a closing? And that's real simple. You can then just multiply it out. If you want 20 and it's 100 contacts to get one, talk to 2,000 people and you should hit your goal. That's like the real simplified version. And don't worry, if you're listening and you are like, I have no clue, I do not track, that's the whole point of today. And I'll give you trackers by the time we're done today. So you'll have everything you need by the time we're done today. Now, one reason we track is to get strategic. So when I'm actually being strategic with my tracking, it lets me know where do I need to be practicing my skill and where do I need to be focusing my time and energy. So as a coach, it's not uncommon for people to come to me and say, I'm behind goal, so my strategy is to talk to more people. Now, how many of you get incredible energy? Raise your hand if you get incredible energy around the idea of talking to more people. Anybody? I don't think I see one hand. In fact, a lot of you were shy about it, but I got a slight little head nod like, no. Yeah, thank you for being honest. I agree. That's not the solution, but that is overwhelmingly the solution people tell me is I think I just need to talk to more people. Well, let me give you an example of why that's not always the solution. Before I do this, sometimes that is what you need to do. If you're on this call and you're like, yeah, I talk to 5 people a day, unless you've done the math and mathematically, based on your conversions, 5 is enough to get to your goal, great, then 5 it is. But for most people, 5 would not be enough to achieve their financial goal. So maybe you do need to talk to more people. As you're listening to me, you probably know if you fall into the category of, yes, I need to talk to more people. But what I find for most people is they really just need to improve skill. Hold on, I'm going to get a drink real quick. 1 second. Okay. All right. So by the way, it's real awkward taking a drink on screen when your water bottle's like the size of your head. Do y'all see this? I'm working on 1 gallon a day, guys. It's really an interesting thing when you're on Zoom trying to drink out of that bottle. Okay. All right. So let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a tracker. By the way, I will give you this tracker and we're going to look at it in just a moment. But on the left-hand side, you're going to see someone who has a contact to set ratio of 3.81%. That's about average right now. And what I did is I tried to give you an example of a pretty normal person in a normal today market. So this isn't like the best agent on the planet is what I'm getting at. They're set to held. So that means they set an appointment. The appointment actually happened 46%. The goal is actually 70. So this person's pretty far below what the goal is. Held to signed 83, that's actually pretty good. And signed to closed 80, that's about right. And what we have here is based off these conversions up here, if they wanted to close 3 people a month, they would have to talk to 525 people a month. Who here wants to talk to 525 people a month? Show me your hands. Anybody? But I would find coaching people, that would be the thing is, well, I guess I just need to talk to more people. I got to increase my contacts. Well, I want you to notice something. I'm going to show you one tweak. You're going to notice they do not set any more appointments. The next example, they still set 13 appointments. That's not going to change. And they're still going to close 4. So it's not going to be a significant change. However, notice the effort that it will take. So on the right-hand side, they're still setting 13 appointments. But now instead of holding 6 appointments, they're holding 9. So they set 13, 9 actually happened. That put them at 69%. That's still slightly below average. They're at 69%. But notice now, instead of talking to 525 people, now they only need to talk to 237 people. That is a significant difference. That is significant. I mean, that's basically less than half of the same amount of people to achieve the same result. So who here would like to figure out how can I talk to half of the amount of people and achieve the same result? Would anybody be okay with that from today? Are any of you getting a little more interested in tracking as I show you the example? Who here totally zoned out until I just told you that you could cut your contacts in half and then you were like, wait, let me bring that screen back up? Who here was that? Yeah. This today, guys, is a game changer. And my passion, you'll probably see it across the screen. I used to hate this stuff, and now I teach it and I love it. And it's because I saw the power as a realtor myself. Before I understood tracking, I felt like I would go to bed at night and it's like, well, I did the best I could today. I hope it works out. And once I started tracking and understood how to interpret it, then I was going to bed at peace because it's like, I know I did the right activity today. Even if I didn't get all the results I wanted today, I know I did the right activity, so I bet they'll show up tomorrow because it was crystal clear on the numbers. So that's why it matters. If we go back to the slide here, the big idea is just how many contacts to earn a closing. That's the main thing I need to know. But the strategic part is, well, why don't I work on this percentage and then talk to less than half the people? So now when you go to practice your dialogues, you know where to practice and you get more result for your effort, okay? That's what I want to give you. So let's break down the different things that we should be tracking. And I will give you a tracker. I honestly don't care if you use the tracker I give you or not. It makes no difference to me. But the point is this needs to be tracked somewhere. So as I go throughout all the different metrics here in just a moment, I'm going to give you the metric. I'm going to define what the metric is, what percentage we're looking for. And that'll help you know, am I average, below average, above average, just where do I fall against this percentage? And that might help you know where to practice. And then I will teach you how to track it at the very end. So dial to contact. Dial simply means I attempted. So you could also put attempted contact to contact. You could look at it that way. For example, let's say Mark goes door knocking. Well, a door knock could be counted as a dial. It's just the idea of I attempted to reach someone and then I actually did. Let me define contact for you. Contact means, and let me be clear real quick, I'm not talking about text contacts or email contacts. Now, I'm all for text and email. I'm not saying that I'm not. I do believe in texting and emailing. But to make sure we're all on the same page for today's webinar, when I say contact, what I mean by that is they picked up the phone and they knew it was about real estate. Got it? So if I call Janet and I'm like, hey, Janet, it's Anna calling from the Haro Group, Keller Williams. And she's like, oh, I'm not interested. I already bought a house. Bye. Did she pick up? Yes. Did she know it was about real estate? Yes, that was a contact. And I say that because I'm coaching someone right now who defines it differently. And we had to have that conversation because we had to make sure we were on the same page. It's totally fine to define it differently, but we need to make sure we're on the same page for the purpose of today's training when we're talking conversion rates, okay? Also, if you're on a team, I would be really curious to ask everyone on your team, how do you define a contact? How do you define a contact? Because if people on your team are not all on the same page, that's really going to mess up your conversion conversations, okay? All right, so down to contact, 12% or higher. And basically what we're looking for here is the frequency of attempted contact. And sorry, let me back up. What we're looking for is 12% or higher. 12% or higher. Now, let me share with you the philosophy here. This is the idea that if I call 100 people, at least 12 are picking up the phone. Now, could you call a list with less than that? Absolutely. It's totally up to you. But have you ever had a day when you're like, man, nobody's picking up the phone? I just feel like literally nobody's picking up the phone today. That 12% gives you a good marker for, is that true? So we look at it as if it's below 12%, this might not be a list worth calling anymore. But if it's above 12%, it actually is a decent pickup rate. So that is actually a pretty good pickup rate. If 12 out of 100 pick up, that's actually considered good enough. Now, there might be times to go below that. Let me ask you as a group, when might you choose to go below 12% on a call list? There might be a strategic reason to do that. What might that be? Y'all are smiling at me. Yes. Elise, go ahead.
You're actually in conversation with somebody that takes up
Yeah.
a period of time.
It could be, well, that won't affect your percentage though. So percentage, that's the beauty of percentage. If I call 100 people, I need 12 to pick up. It doesn't matter if they're short conversations or long conversations, that won't affect the percentage. Does that
I
make sense?
misunderstood the question.
Yeah. So what I mean by if I say, you know what, on this list, only 8 out of 100 pick up, but I'm okay with that. What might make me say it's still worth calling this list? So Helly in the chat box said maybe introduction to a neighborhood. Yeah, so maybe there's a particular neighborhood that maybe it's close to my office and I would love to have that neighborhood for the convenience. It's right here, right by my office. So maybe I would say, yeah, you know what? 8 out of 100 pick up. I really want 12 out of 100, but you know what? It's right here. It's convenient. I really want to really own this neighborhood. I'm just going to keep calling. That might be a reason you go below 12%. I'm kind of nervous that not everybody's on the same page. Do y'all know what I'm talking about with the percentage here? With, yes? Okay. If not, put it in the chat box. And that way I know that we are, whether or not we're on the same page. The other reason you might do that is let's say that I want to call a neighborhood that has an average price point of $1 million. And my average price point is 500,000. Well, that tells me, hey, if I call this list and people pick up the phone, that is dollar value wise, like 2 of 1 of my normal houses. So you know what? I'll take a lower pickup rate because that is a high price neighborhood and I really want houses there. Does that make sense? So that might be a reason I would say, okay, I'm going to call a list that honestly doesn't have the best pickup rate. I do have a question in the chat box of does calling agent referrals count as a contact? Is it about real estate? And did they pick up the phone? It's a contact. Okay. Now, if I call a past client and we're just shooting the breeze and I never ask anything about real estate, I don't know that I would count that as a contact. The point is I'm calling about real estate business and they picked up the phone. That's how I define contact. Now, again, if you define it differently in your own business, that's really okay. I'm just wanting to make sure that we're on the same page for today. So 12% picks up the phone. Now, how can you improve that? And that's what the bullet points are. A lot of times people will just say, oh, they don't pick up the phone. And so it's just a bad list. That's not actually true. That's not actually true. You can do things to improve whether or not people pick up the phone. We talked about this actually in class 1. So one of them is how frequently am I attempting? So remember, the magic is 6 calls in 6 to 10 days. That alone will increase the likelihood that they'll pick up the phone. Another thing would be the quality of voicemails. So if I am leaving quality voicemails, that will also help my contact rate. So the truth is, if I call a list and I call them incredibly sporadically and I never leave a voicemail, I can't really complain or say much about that being a low pickup rate list because I'm not doing the right behaviors to produce contact, right? So those are things that you can do to increase that contact ratio. I will tell you, it's not on the slide, but one of the best pickup rates you'll see is 25%, just for perspective. And I found that helpful to learn because it helped me to know, okay, it's not realistic to expect 50% here. 25% would be 1 out of 4 people picking up the phone. That's pretty good, right? Who here would be happy with that? A lot of you are nodding your heads. Yeah. So 1 out of 4 is actually pretty great. So that would be 25%. So I find most people are between 12 and 25%. Now, if it's an established pattern and I realize, okay, every time I call this list, it's always an 8% pickup rate, then I need to find a new list. That's just not a list that's serving me. And, or it could be a different time of day. So sometimes I've had it where I'll call a list and I always call them 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, maybe I need to try calling that list 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe I would get a very different result. Depending on what the list is, sometimes there are different people, different demographics. They pick up different times of day, depending on where you're calling. So you're not tracking this for skill. This percentage, and this is the only percentage, it doesn't tell us anything about your skill level of how good you are on the phone. It's simply letting us know the quality of the list. That's it. The only thing that would be skill there would be, are you actually leaving voicemails and are you calling 6 times in 6 days? But that's more about your hustle and your effort and less to do with your actual skill on the phone. Now, every other metric that I'm about to give you is directly tied to your skill as a real estate agent, and being in this class should help improve all of the ones I'm about to show you. So let's jump into the next one. Okay. And I had a question, a private message in the chat box. Is this like 12% per day or per week? It doesn't matter. A percentage is a percentage is a percentage, and that's why percentages matter. Let me give you an example of what I mean, because this might help with this whole percentage thing. I was coaching a team that was getting a ridiculous amount of leads every month. They were getting a week. They were getting about 300 new leads a week. That's a lot of leads. And they were setting about 12 appointments a week out of the 300 leads. That doesn't actually sound that great out of 300, does it? But if I said, oh yeah, I'm setting 12 appointments a week, I sound like a really fantastic salesperson, don't I? But when you hear, yeah, but you're also getting 300 new leads a week, that's 1,200 a month. That changes the 12 appointment set, doesn't it? Right? Now, if I'm setting 12 appointments a week and I'm getting only 20 new leads a week, that's a much higher percentage. That's why percentages matter. So if somebody tells me, oh yeah, I set this many a week or I set this many a week, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me as a coach, other than, is that enough to hit your financial goal? That matters. But what I'm interested in is, well, how many leads are you getting? What's your opportunity? And what percentage of that opportunity are you getting? If you're getting 300 leads a week, maybe you should be setting more than 12. You see what I mean here? So that's why percentages matter. And percentages really do reveal quality. That's what it reveals. So let's get into contact to set. So contact means they picked up the phone, they knew it was about real estate. Set means, and hear me when I say this, they know that you're meeting me about hiring me to be their agent. So sometimes I hear people say that set is a follow-up call. I would not consider that a set. A set means we're meeting to discuss whether or not they're going to hire me to be their real estate agent. Okay. If you look at the buyer and seller sheets that I did a on-demand video about back in November, it's in the client portal. You'll see in the buyer seller sheets, when we go to set the appointment, it talks about possibly signing paperwork. So that would be an appointment. So the goal here is 5% or higher. Now in today's market, most people are hanging out around 3%. So if you want to put that in your notes, I'm finding 3 to 4-ish% a little more common right now. So if you're feeling like you need to talk to more people to get the same result as maybe a couple years ago, you would be correct. Don't let that get in your head. I've had people, oh man, am I even good at this anymore? I just feel like maybe I'm not good at this. I'm like, no, there are some things happening in the market. We're just across the board. We're having to talk to more people to get the same result as we did a few years ago. That does not mean you are not good at what you do. That means you're normal. Okay. What I will say is people that I know that are very dedicated to understanding the patterns of this class. So I'll check in with past students and I'll say hey, how are you coming with your conversion, all this. I am finding that they are still around the 5 to 6% range. So I'm saying that to encourage you that 3 to 4% is normal today. It doesn't have to be if you work on your skill. Okay, so don't feel like it just is what it is because of the market, because I know agents out there that could probably teach this class if I was out sick and they are at 5, 6% and they really, really, really know the dialogues. Okay. So I think that's encouraging is you can help yourself by owning the dialogues. Now, there's some things that impact this. One of them is clear motivation. Do you have clear motivation on your clients? If you do, that's going to help you have a higher percentage rate. Another thing that will impact this is, are you pre-screening your clients? So pre-screening, and we're going to learn about that in our next class. Pre-screening helps set up the expectation that you are a professional and it builds value. So when you pre-screen a client, it actually makes them want to work with you more. Sometimes I hear people say that they get motivation and then they just go for the appointment. But what that does is it doesn't really set you up as the professional. How would you perceive a doctor that just walked in? No nurse ever took your blood pressure. They never took your heart rate. They never took your oxygen. They didn't ask you any questions. And a doctor just walked in and said, okay, I know what we need to do. Wouldn't you sit there and kind of think, man, she didn't ask me any questions. You don't really know my symptoms. You don't really know what's going on. So pre-screening is what sets that tone. It's like the nurse asking the questions, and it actually builds value so that they do want to meet with you and have an appointment. Another thing that will help this is keeping up with your follow-up tasks. So if you're falling behind on follow-up, that will certainly impact how many appointments you're setting. And the biggest thing that will affect this over everything is urgency to their own personal motivation. And that's why I taught that very, very early in this class. You have to make it about their own personal motivation. It has to be about their motivation. I just interviewed someone, you know how I'm dropping interviews for you for our on-demand content? Are y'all watching those, by the way? I did a great interview with Kyle, and it is in the client portal, and we talked all about playing offense versus defense. Well, I just interviewed someone who specializes with investors. Who here would love to work with some investors? I interviewed an investor specialist for you. You'll get that in January. We interviewed today. And I had no idea what she was going to say because I'm not an investor specialist. And I just asked her, what's the mindset that we need to have when we call investors? And I was expecting more like tactical mindset stuff. And she's, you know what she said is it's about knowing their story and their motivation. I was not expecting her to say that. And she basically said what we preach in this class. That's what she said. So you'll get that full interview in January, all about investing. But the point is, you have to know their motivation. That will help increase the likelihood they'll show up for an appointment. Now, let me give you a couple of things that's not on your slide if you want to throw this in your notes somewhere. Different lead sources will affect that percentage. So let me give you some different ideas. So for example, if I am calling, and you have to do this, of course, in a TCPA compliant way, hashtag legal requirements, I have to say in 2024. But when you call expireds, say you're calling expireds or for sale by owners, you can actually expect a 10% conversion contact to set. That's pretty freaking awesome. That's 1 out of 10 people setting an appointment with you. If you are calling web leads, and there's all different web leads out there, right? They range usually between 3 and 6%. If I am calling circle calling, anybody want to explain what circle calling is for those that don't know?
It's like calling in a geographic area.
Yes. Thank you, Marcy. Yeah, think of it kind of like I drop a pin and I call around that area geographically. So maybe I just listed a house and I want to call within a 2-mile radius to invite people to the open house, something like that. That is actually, you know what a good percentage is for that? 1%. So I always try to be careful. A pet peeve of mine is when I go to these events, and have you ever been to an event and someone is like, oh yeah, I have whatever percentage for contact to set, and then everybody kind of judges themselves against that? Like, wait. We don't have enough information here. Are they circle calling? Because actually 2% would be freaking fantastic. Are they calling expireds and FSBO and at a 5%? Because they actually could use some improvement. Are they calling web leads? And that's about right. So you have to ask a lot of questions and be careful not to judge yourself against other people and what they're doing and what their conversions are. If you have questions, I see a hand raised, just throw it in the chat box or write it down. We'll do questions at the end, just for the sake of time. All right. That's contact to set 5% or higher. Let's move on to set to held. So set, again, means they know we're meeting about hiring me to be their agent. Held means the appointment actually happened. It actually happened. What we're looking for here is 70 to 80%. 70 to 80%. Some things that will help that is getting the appointment within 48 hours. We studied this. We actually hired someone to study the difference between within 2 days and outside of 2 days. When an appointment is more than 2 days out, it drops to a 20% held ratio. That is a significant difference. That's a 50% difference. So when an appointment happens within 2 days, 70 to 80% is pretty normal. If it happens beyond 2 days, now it drops to 20%. If all things are the same, you set it the same, your verbiage is the same, everything's the same, you lose a 50% likelihood they'll show up. So that right there could be your moneymaker from today's class, is get them within 2 days. Get them within 2 days. We actually don't want you to be consistently, and I mean consistently, above 80% held ratio. And you might be wondering, well, why? Why wouldn't we want like 100%? Well, if somebody's at 100% or 90%, and this is like week after week after week, if you have 1 week like that, pat yourself on the back, congratulations, that was awesome. But if that's a pattern for you, what that tells us is you're actually too conservative. So the example that I always give is basketball. Wilt Chamberlain in 1962, he scored 100 points in a basketball game, NBA basketball game, which is incredible. Kobe Bryant in 2006 scored 81. Well, if you they were different eras, of course, but if you put both players on the court at the same time, Kobe actually sunk more baskets, okay? But he just didn't take as many attempts. So his record is 81. And Wilt, who was not as skilled at getting the basket in, he has 100 to Kobe's 81. See the comparison there? And so because Wilt just took more chances, and by the way, both amazing basketball players, but because Wilt took more chances, he literally netted more. So if someone is consistently around 100% held ratio, I would actually coach them to see, let's see if you can get it to 70 or 80%. Because I would rather you set 10 appointments and have 8 show up than to set 5 appointments and have 4 show up. Or set 4 appointments and have 3 show up. That's a higher percentage, but that's not actually, you're not netting more clients. So let's move on to held to signed. Held to signed. So this means the appointment actually happened, and then they signed the agency agreement. What we're looking for is 80% or higher. What I'll tell you is with the verbiage and methods we teach you in this class, we see students at 90% or higher, and that we do want as high as possible. So 90% or higher. Using the verbiage from this class, I consistently hit 90% of sellers hired us and 95% of buyers hired us. And that was consistent over a year and a half that I was tracking it. When I teach this to people, it's a little harder to do in a group setting like this, but if I'm coaching someone one-on-one and I teach them how to get signature, I follow up and keep up with them. Like, what's your signature rate? Where are you? How are you? And they usually are around 90%. So 90% is very reasonable to get signature. You just have to know how to set it up in the right verbiage. So to help you with that, it's value proposition. And that's actually the December call that I'm teaching, which is next Wednesday. That's the topic, is I'm teaching you how do you build a value proposition so they hire you. Well, have you built enough reason to hire you? You know, have you learned how to describe the value that you bring? A big factor here is what's a customer versus a client. And what I mean by that is Sorry, what I mean by that is, do you have a clearly defined thing that buyers, or not buyers, that customers get versus clients? One example of what I mean by that is if I'm talking to a buyer and they say, I'm ready to start looking at houses and their appointment's not till next week. I might say, all right, what I can do for you today, Ryan, is I'm going to set you up on a general search. And what that means is I'll send houses your direction. They fit the basic criteria of what you're looking for. So it'll fit the, 3 bedroom, 2 bath in the Taylor's area code. When we meet in person, after we've agreed to work together, that's when I'll put you on the more specific search. So that's when I'll put down hardwood floors, fence, and a pool. Now, could I do that today before he has hired me? Absolutely. I could put him on a search today that has all the criteria of everything he's looking for. But then why would he hire me? I've already given away all the value that I have to offer, right? If Leah calls me and says, hey, I want to get my house ready to list, do you have a stager? Absolutely, Leah. That's the kind of thing we provide once we agree to work together. We'll talk about that in our meeting next week. So I'm not going to give Leah my stager today. She's not a client today. If I give her my stager today, why would she hire me? That's all part of building your value proposition. So I encourage you, a good activity to do after today's call would be just set aside 15 minutes. This won't take long. And brainstorm, what do customers get and what do clients get? And there should be certain things that people only get once they have actually hired you. And if you're not clear on that, that could actually reduce that signature rate and make it harder to get people to hire you. And then the other thing is just getting really good at saying your next step is to sign paperwork. You'll see that on the buyer and seller sheet that I gave you last week in the November on-demand content. In the buyer seller sheet, it actually says your next step is to meet with me and we'll do 3 things. And it brings up the idea of signing paperwork. And then, of course, urgency to their own motivation is a factor. That's always a factor. All right, so 80% or higher. And then there's a question in the chat box. Have you seen an increase in buyer signed since it's now required? And yes, but I would still say around that 80%, 90-ish%. Stephanie, what it used to be is people weren't asking at all, or it was down in like the 30s or the 40s, which is not at all where we want to be. So I'm not seeing it like go way high, close to 100, but I am seeing it go up for sure. And that's just because not everybody we meet hires us. So it's realistic that it would be somewhere between like 80, 90%. Cool. But again, what gets in the way of that is just giving away everything you have for free with no commitment from the person. That's what'll get you in trouble. And you're worth more than that. I get really passionate about this. And you'll see in later classes, because we talk about how to really build that value proposition. I see people just give away way too much without any sort of commitment. And when you can get really clear on what your worth is as an agent, what you have to offer, and here's what clients get, but here's what customers get, and there's a difference, that will help your signature ratio. And a lot of it comes with just saying stuff like, absolutely, once we agree to work together, if you want to write that phrase down, once we agree to work together, that will really help you with your signature rate. And then the last metric, and then I'll show you the systems. I'll give you the trackers. The last one is signed to closed, and that should be 80% or higher. So they've now hired me. I have an agency agreement, actually finding them a house or selling their house and getting it closed 80% or more. And that really comes down to your negotiation skill and then proper pricing. And I would add to that proper expectation as well. I just saw today on a national summary, the average days on market is 59. And that's today. It'll probably be different tomorrow. But 59 is the average days on market. So I should be telling that to my sellers when we list. And hopefully I can say my average is 30. The national average is 59. That would be awesome to be able to say. But I need to be able to set expectation of what's actually happening. So I keep them happy and we eventually get closed. Okay. And again, urgency to their own personal motivation. So let me show you real quick the 2 trackers. The first thing I want to do is show you the daily success paper tracker, and I'll show you where that is here in our client portal. And I should still be sharing screen so you can see this. we're going to go to session 2. Don't go there right now. I'll show you. I don't want you to get distracted, but I'm clicking on session 4. And right here it says 3 workbooks and materials. And I'm going to download, the first thing is the daily success tracker. And let me show that to you. Hold on, I got to pull it up. While I'm pulling that up, there's really 2 systems here. And here's the big picture. Again, I don't personally care which system you use exactly. What matters is that you're doing it. So if you say, I already have a tracker, I love it, and it tracks all the things you just talked about, great, keep using it. Now I do have a question for you, and this is like a spot check. If I were to stop you in the hallway or force you to come off mute, which don't worry, I'm not going to do it. But if I all of a sudden said, Elise, you're unmuted, or Holly, you're unmuted, Sasha, you're unmuted, I need to know right now, what's your contact to set ratio? Do you know it? So what I find sometimes is we track, and I've been this way. I was tracking, but I couldn't tell you at all what my results were. Because remember, I used to not like to track. So I would turn in my numbers just so I could leave for the day. And what that meant was I had no idea what my rates were. I didn't know anything about how to interpret it, nothing. It did not really help me. And that's what I want to fix for you. So if you have a tracker that you're using, great. Make sure it's tracking the right things and make sure that you know how to interpret it. So here's a paper tracker that I have, and here's my personal system. I personally have a system where throughout the day, I have a paper tracker that sits to the right-hand side of my mouse for my computer. I'm right-handed, so I put it on the right-hand side. And all throughout the day, as I'm making calls, I'm documenting what's happening. So dials get tracked up here. If I have a contact, I check off the boxes. Contact names. Now there's 40 spots. I admit that's a lot of spots. And here's why I did that. Some of you in here are inside sales agents and you're on the phone all day. It's more realistic that you could achieve 40 contacts a day. I have ISAs that do that. If you're an agent, don't pressure yourself to hit all 40 unless you have no clients, then by all means, call and talk to 40 people a day. But you might be more likely to fill out as an agent just one side. But here's part of why I did this. This was very strategic. When you're achieving a 5% contact to set rate, what that means is you're setting 1 appointment out of 20 contacts. Well, how many spaces are there in a column? There's 20. And I did that because I wanted you to be motivated to fill out a whole column and know by the time you get to the end of that column, there's a very decent chance you'll have an appointment set. And what I found that this did for me is if I was at like number 16, I would start to get excited thinking, oh, I'm about to set an appointment. And then sure enough, I would set an appointment by about 20. Now, I have to ask myself, if I told myself at number 5, oh, I'm about to set an appointment, would I have set one sooner? I don't know, kind of have to wonder about that. But I knew from tracking statistically, the numbers tell me I will set an appointment 1 out of every 20. And so that's why the columns have 20 and 20. All right. Then if I met an appointment, I checked a box. If they signed, I checked a box. And if I had a closing, I checked the box. Now on the back, so what I recommend is print this out as a front and a back. So when you print them, they're 2-sided. The reason that I have a back to it is, have you ever been in your lead gen flow and you set an appointment and then you stop your lead gen flow to do all of the admin around an appointment? Anybody relate to this? How long on average, tell me in the chat box, how long on average does it take you to do all the admin around an appointment? I usually hear anywhere from like 2 minutes to 10 minutes. I've seen 30 minutes pop in before, all across the board. Well, unless that appointment is happening in just a few hours, do you have to do all that right now in the middle of your lead gen flow? That's the question. I do think you need to save the spot in the calendar so you don't get double booked. But even if it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, mentally, it takes you 15 minutes to get back engaged in your activity when you stop to do something else. So it might only take you 5 minutes, but really it's 20 minutes of mental awareness for doing that. So what I started doing, I just got frustrated at that as somebody trying to set appointments all day. So what I started doing is on the front, I would write down all the names and what happened. If I set an appointment, I would flip my page over. I would write down the details real quick so I could remember for later. And then I would just get right back on the phone. So other than blocking the spot in the calendar, I just stayed in lead generation until that block was over. So that's what the back is for. So that's system number one, is the paper tracker. And for me, that just looked like all day long as I'm working, I'm just filling out the tracker on paper. Now, here's the thing about a paper tracker. Is it going to tell you percentages? No. So all the strategic stuff that I taught you, the paper tracker isn't going to tell you a percentage. So what you do then, and I'll show you exactly what to do, is once per day, and it typically takes literally 15 seconds. It's about 15 seconds. Let me make this nice and big for you. Once a day for about 15 seconds, you're going to take all the information off your paper tracker and you're simply going to upload it. So let me come here. What's today? The 11th. And I'm going to say, okay, I dialed 102 people, 34 picked up. I set 2 appointments, and pay attention here because everybody always asks. It doesn't matter when you set it. If you held an appointment today, I don't care if you set it a week ago. I don't care if you set it yesterday. If you held an appointment today, you put that in today. I held an appointment today. I signed that appointment I held today. So I put a signature in, and then I had a closing that maybe came from something I did 3 months ago. So I had a closing and I'm done. And that takes about 15 minutes. And then I just keep doing that every day. Let me throw in a couple data points for you. And I'm just going to throw in some random numbers here. And just every day I just come in and I fill this out. It takes seconds. Here's the magic. Are you ready to be amazed? Okay, here's the magic. You enter your data here. It takes 15 minutes or 15 seconds. When you come here, this is called Coach's Corner. It's the next tab. And it tells you what are your percentages so that you can be strategic. So I know from looking at this, and again, these are just fake numbers that I threw in there, but I have 24% dial to contacts. Do I need to worry about what list I'm calling and whether or not it's a quality list? No, I'm actually great. I'm at 8% contact to set. That's actually pretty good as well. Average is 5. So I'm actually doing very well there. Again, these are made up numbers. But where I do have room for improvement is set to held, because I'm at 66% and average is 70. I'm not too far off, but I do have room for improvement. So if I were to practice, that's where I would practice, is how to set appointments that actually show up. But here's the real fun thing. Are you all about ready? I wish you had confetti and you could like throw it in the air. Okay. All right. Maybe I should start mailing confetti to students and say, save it for session 4. Here's the magic. A lot of you said you do know what your goal is for next year and how much money you want to make and how many closings you want. Well, let's say that you're an agent on this call and you decided that you want to have 3 closings a month. Well, you put a 3 in that yellow box and the tracker will tell you what you need to do. Now this is based off of 52-week year, so you're going to need to adjust some things. But let's say that I want 5 closings a month. I'll put a 5 in that box and watch what happens when I hit enter. I hit enter and the tracker updated telling me what I need to do on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, and a daily basis in order to achieve 5 closings. That is pretty fantastic. The other thing I like is this will tell me as I fill it out and time goes on, month over month, how is my conversion doing? So if this was real, I would be very impressed with myself because I would go from a 6% to a 10% conversion from December to January. I would know, cool, what I'm doing is working. What I'm doing is working. The reality is using this, our team actually caught a shift in the market before anybody was talking about it. And the way we did that is I was looking at that summary, quarterly summary, and I noticed, my conversions are going down. But I'm still practicing my dialogues. I haven't changed who I'm calling. And as I evaluated it, I realized nothing major has changed. You know how sometimes your conversions go down and you know it's because you're not practicing? Like, you know. But in this case, we were practicing and we started asking ourselves, is there a shift happening in the market? But no one was talking about it. And sure enough, about a month later, they were coming out saying there's a shift in the real estate market. And we caught it because we were tracking our numbers very, 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 very closely. So this tracker, again, is under session 4 in the client portal. So I encourage you guys, start using it today. It's a fantastic tool. It literally takes 15 seconds to throw your numbers in here. And then you can come here and maybe you're an ISA, and because you're an ISA on a team, you want 10 closings a month. Put a 10 in there and it will tell you exactly what you need to do in order to achieve it, which is pretty awesome. Okay. So that's how the tracker works. Again, it is found in the client portal under session 4. You'll find the paper tracker, and I call it the power tracker because if you're going to name a tracker something, why not call it a power tracker, right? That's kind of my philosophy. So we call it a power tracker. And what I do is I have it saved. You can actually see it here on my screen. See where it says PT 2025? That's my 2025 power tracker. So if I click on that, it takes me to the tracker. So that's what I encourage you to do. Once you get it, save it as a bookmark and you're good to go. So those are your tracking systems under session 4. So for action, what I recommend you do is make sure you're tracking all 5 of those conversions. And again, if you have a different tracker, that's fine. Just make sure all 5 of those are being tracked. And as long as they are, that's all that matters. And then evaluate how are you doing so that you know where to practice and spend your time. And then lastly, again, here's the coaching call. I'll put this back in the chat box for you. Here's the sign up for calls over holiday break. So let me put that back up here for you. There you go. All right, so grab that so you can still have some education even when we're on break. And now we'll open it up for questions and comments, takeaways. What did you love? What do you have questions about? And I'll check out the chat box first. Here.
I have a question. You have a moment?
Yes, I try to honor who raised their hand, but go for it. But just for
No, go ahead. I'll raise my hand. I can wait. No worries.
Go for it. No, you go. Go.
Okay, real quick. So I love the tracker. We've been using it.
Yes.
We have a really great agent on our team that was newer, who just evolved so much by using the tracker and taking your class. So that's been great. I think where we had the most, and I could use your idea. So we're able to see that she's able to set the appointments. They meet her at the appointments, and those are all above average, but then they don't get signed. Like she had like 20% signed, and then it goes down from there. So she's like 1 to 2 closings a month with a lot of activity. So what part of either this class or how do you focus in using that information to help them go to the next level?
Is this an inside sales agent that you're tracking or an agent?
It's an agent that is closing 1 to 2, so they mainly do a lot of calls.
So often what that is, and there could be a lot of factors. One question I would have is, are they pre-screening? Because if they're not pre-screening, they don't know what objections to prepare for. They don't know the financial situation walking in. They're basically walking in blind. So in next week, we're going to learn all about pre-screening. So I would wonder, are they pre-screening? Because you can set a ton of appointments, but if you're not pre-screening them, a lot of them aren't going to be quality. And another question I would have is, how skilled are they at setting the expectation of signature? And that is something we do dive deeply into this class about. Yeah, we haven't gotten there quite yet, but we do talk about that in this class. But also, if they are using the buyer and seller sheets from class, it's setting up for signature.
Do you count an appointment every time? Is it only when they're going to talk about either listing or a buy, not showings, not people they meet at open houses?
No.
I think we were doing that in the beginning. So I think that also skewed the numbers.
Yeah, that would, because they're not I'm not going to ask you to sign an agency every time I show you a house. So if I'm
only when you're going to ask somebody to sign an agency.
Yeah. So the only time that I'm counting it as an appointment is when the expectation, and if you look at the buyer and seller sheets from the November on-demand content, it says when we meet, we're going to do 3 things. Number 1, we're going to go back over your motivation and price. Number 2, we're going to interview each other, make sure we're a good fit. And then number 3, we'll sign paperwork to make sure we're good. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we'll sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? Like that needs to be happening in the setting of it. So I would say if you have more questions about it, join the extra help call Tuesday. I want to honor that we have more questions and we're pretty much out of time. But on Tuesday, Patricia, we can do a deep dive into that. That could be one of the topics for Tuesday.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I skipped.
You're good. All right, so I'll go to Marcy.
Already? Oh, sorry.
And then, we're going to go to Marcy and then Elise.
Okay, yeah, I just had my question in the chat. And it was like, let's say if you are doing circle prospecting, right? And then you get, I call it a lead, like if they're not ready to sell today, but like,
Yeah.
3 months, from now or something, what would be a good percentage of like leads to contacts? Um, they're not quite ready for an appointment, but they're a lead.
Yeah. So I don't track that metric just because I don't think it's an important metric, quite honestly. What I'd be looking for is, did 12 people pick up the phone if I dialed 100 or more? So 12 or more. And then a goal that I had personally was every day I wanted to add 5 names to my database. Now remember, I was doing this all day, not just in the morning, because I was an inside sales agent. But I don't track lead to contact just because it's not an important metric.
Okay, and then you said what, let's see, 1% for like a cold call, circle prospecting.
For circle, yeah,
5% for like somebody in your database, like a warm lead, and then 10% for, was it expired or something?
expired or FISBO. Yep.
Expired or FISBO. Okay, thanks.
Yep. You're welcome. All right, Elise, and we'll round out with Elise. And then remember, Tuesday is our extra help call where we have a whole hour just for questions. Reminder, there's a Google form to submit questions because some of them I can do on the fly and some of them I'll do a little research to make sure I give you the best answer. All right, Elise, go ahead.
Sure. How do you count your business networking contacts, like a BNI or something like that?
Yeah, so if I go, let's say, and this is just me, we all can do this a little differently, but the way I used to do it is if I go, I want to just count if they're here at the meeting. But if I stand up and I say something like, yes, I'm in real estate and I do a presentation and I know all the people here know I was in real estate, then I'm going to count. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there's 10 people here. That was just 10 contacts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Do you have the link for the Google sheet for next week's call?
It's under announcements in
I
the
know.
portal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it kind of just lives there. I'll show you, and then we'll end the call. So under the client portal, which is where I am right now, click on Mega Lead Conversion 2.0 and click on announcements. And you'll see extra help call. And under there is the Google Sheet. I would love to find a better place to house that. And for some reason, we're having a hard time finding a spot where it just stays up top, but that's where you find it. Cool. All right. Well, I will see you Tuesday. Keep your eye out. I don't know when Maps will drop it, but I've recorded 3 on-demand content for you for December that should appear sometime soon. So keep your eye out for that in the client portal as well. And then Tuesday is our extra help call. Wednesday, we're going to talk about how to pre-screen clients, which Patricia, like what you were asking, next week's call will help. Like, how do we really properly pre-screen somebody? And then we're on break for the holiday. So make sure you check out the holiday calls, and then I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Have a great one. Bye, everyone.